I've got some stuff on my chest. I got to get it off my chest. I always feel better after I do that. So today's live stream will be about stuff like that, stuff that's wrong, stuff that's still wrong after all these years, stuff we can fix. How do we fix it? Just all sorts of issues. Let's get into this now. Have you noticed the latest deal from the FBI about the ELD, the electronic logging devices? Turns out, and all sorts of people were onto this before they mandated the ELD, but all sorts of people said, no, there'll be a way that the cyber hackers can get into these systems. Well, now the FBI is confirming that. They're saying these ELDs are not foolproof. They're not hacker-proof. So what they're saying is not only can hackers get into the ELDs and make the motor do things that you don't want the motor to do, these hacks now can move laterally through the ELD system back into the carrier, into the carrier's base, and sort through private information about the employees, banking information about the employees. Hackers can now access all of that just from targeting a truck's ELD system. They can make the truck speed up. They can make the truck slow down. The possibilities are endless because these devices are not secure devices. Lots of people said that before they mandated them. Now, after they've been mandated, now the FBI is saying, look at this. So what's the solution to this? Do we go back to pre-E-log days? You don't know. The FBI is saying this is a real problem. What do you guys think about that? They're saying it's a national security issue. And when the FBI stands up and says something like that, you got to worry. You should worry. We heard lots about the broker transparency. Where's that? Nothing's happened with that. Who's taking care of that? Driver retention. Edward Atarian talking about driver retention. Yep, that's still a huge problem in our industry. Have any of you people seen the legal battle going on between CRST and Trans Am? And what CRST is claiming is that Trans Am is stealing their new drivers. But I've got some issues with that. If CRT were paying their new guys well and treating them well, they wouldn't be jumping ship in the first place. So the court has looked at CRST, and part of the problem is when a new driver hires on, they train the driver, and the cost to the driver is $6,500, and CRST takes that out of the driver's wages, and they take them to court if the driver leaves to get those wages back, the $6,500 training cost. The only problem is the court found out that CRST's training cost is only $2,500, not $6,500. So there's CRST dinging their brand new guys for $4,000 more in profit, and I don't need, and charging them 18% interest on top of that. So think CRST are a bunch of crooks? Absolutely. Proud member of the ATA? Absolutely. It's just, it's why would you make the industry that dirty? There's no need. They're just trying to soak the new guys. One of the most stressful parts of any truck driver's day is getting pulled into the weigh station. DriveWise helps eliminate that stress with their pre-clear technology. It works on all major ELDs or as an app on your phone. DriveWise is now offering a 30-day free trial on DriveWise Pre-Clear. Check them out at drivewise.com. You see the death rate with truck drivers has just soared in the last couple of years, up about 42% in the last number of years. And these ELDs were supposed to prevent that. They were supposed to be a safety tool. They were supposed to stop accidents and lower the accident rate. Instead, they're up. And why is that? It's not the fault of the device itself. The device itself works fine. It's a good way to keep track of your hours. The problem is how the carriers have twisted this ELD device to become what they like to call an efficiency tool. And in plain English, what that means is working their drivers as absolutely as hard as they possibly can and still stay within the law. They're, work their drivers as hard as possible is what that boils down to. So, yeah, Edward Detarian, government regulations. Yeah, we half the time you don't find out what's wrong with these regulations until they've been in practice for a little while, and we're finding out stuff about the ELDs now that are a problem. And retention, for instance, driver retention, huge issue in our industry. But if they would just keep their good drivers and pay them really well, like top truck drivers these days should be making six-figure salaries. No question about it. That's where the cost of living has gone. Why haven't the salaries kept pace? And drivers making better than $100,000 a year wouldn't leave. That would solve the retention problem right there, reduce the turnover drastically. But, the big carriers would like to pay them as little as possible, and that's a big problem here. So let me rant about that for a while, but I could go on and on. They had the FMCSA Safety Summit, and I hope that I'm saying this guy's name. The one guy from the OIDA, Louis Pug, I believe, or Pug, or I'm not sure how to say his last name. But what he's saying is, and he's right, these problems that we're having today, we were having 25 years ago, and we were talking about them 25 years ago, and here we are 25 years later, and they still haven't been corrected. And are we going to come back in another 25 years and find we're still in the same boat? He's a little bit frustrated. I don't blame him. I am too. Look at the parking situation for big trucks. You guys still having trouble finding parking? According to statistics, there's one parking space available for every 10 trucks in the United States. So we passed Jason's Law a few years ago. Seen any changes in the parking since that law was passed? I haven't. It's still hell to find a parking spot in different parts of the country. Yeah, after 6 o'clock, no parking, especially on the eastern seaboard. The eastern seaboard is a nightmare. If you're going to park, you've got to be landed by 4 or you're done.
Here's a question.
What are your thoughts on mirrorless tractors? I think that's crazy. Why would you rely on electronic technology when you've got an easy, simple fix mirror that works just fine? A guy pulls in behind you, he knocks off the mirror, you go into the truck stop, get another one and stick it back on, you're on your way. Knock off an electronic camera, imagine how hard that's going to be to change over. Taking the door panel apart and everything like that. I love new technology, but it's got to be idiot proof, and I can't see that as being idiot proof. Yeah, it reduces the imprint on the wind and your slide factor through the wind, but kind of an impractical solution. They're legal though. The FMCSA now has allowed that to become legal to do. You bet the carriers can afford to pay the good drivers that, because look at the money they're spending on all this electronic equipment. Look at the salaries they're paying themselves. Look at the cost of the equipment that they're buying. You don't need 1,000 trailers in your fleet. You need good drivers. You don't need to change tractors every 2 years. You need professional drivers. You don't need a CEO with a $4 million salary a year. You can spend that money on your drivers, and there's all sorts of CEOs making millions a year at these big mega carriers.
They just like you to believe they can afford it.
Yeah, that's right. They'd like you to believe they can't afford it. You bet they can afford it. It's just how they delegate their money, and it's greed. Who needs $4 million a year salary plus bonuses? Who needs that? Who needs to live on that kind of money? Nobody. I don't understand why you wouldn't share it with the people that are making the money for you and keeping your company successful. And you know what? If you're keeping the highway safe, isn't that worth something? Isn't it worth it to pay your guys a 6-digit salary and not be involved in lawsuits, for instance, and accidents? Werner alone paid out $42 million in accidents last year, in accident claims. $42 million. Don't you think you should have maybe spread that among your drivers and had better drivers and more safety and better training? Training is a huge problem. That's half the problem. They get all these guys in here and don't train them thoroughly. They just kick them out and put them behind the wheel. Then they've got driver trainers with 2 and 3 months experience who don't know whether they're punched or bored, and they're training other guys to be the same. There's issues. There's issues, but they're solvable. They're solvable. Terry J., the government in Canada has allowed through legislation trucking companies to manipulate owner-operators and classify them as independent operators when they're really just an employee. Oh, there's all sorts of problems that way too. Like, look at what California's going through. It's a mess. There's another mess with no need to it. You know, it's just I could go on and about AB5 and classification, and you know, in London, like Terry, Revenue Canada will sort that out for them. They'll figure out who's an employee and who's not. And in California, it's turning into a bigger kettle of fish, and no need for it. No need for it. But you know, there's always somebody that's got to create a problem where no problem existed before. Keep the rubber side down, and we'll see you on the backhaul. Good night, everybody.